I'd like to see people singing while they're waiting for the bus. Just us, waiting for the bus, just us, waiting for the bus, just us, waiting for the bus, Mr. Driver, won't you please come soon?
American folk music legend Pete Seeger today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. One of the most iconic and influential musicians in America in the 20th century was a man who rarely needed much more than just a banjo and a strong voice to entertain an audience. Pete Seeger was born in New York City in 1919. By the 1930s, he was already performing, and by the 1940s, he was a major radio star. His political views got him blacklisted in the 1950s, but by the 1960s, his reputation had been revived and he grew ever more popular. In fact, many of his songs are songs you know very well. Where Have All the Flowers Gone? If I Had a Hammer, Turn, Turn, Turn. These all became big hits for him and for other performers. Even well into the 1990s, Pete Seeger was still entertaining huge audiences of all ages. It was in the summer of 1993 that I had the rare opportunity for a one-on-one with this absolute music legend. And let me tell you something. Being in a studio with Pete Seeger and having him sing to you, well, you're about to hear it. And you won't believe a couple of the stories he's about to tell you. So in just a moment, my conversation with Pete Seeger.
We're about to take a step back and listen to an iconic voice from our recent past. It's one of over 10,000 interviews noted radio personality Bill Thompson did over a 30-year span. We think you'll enjoy it.
So here now, from 1993, Pete Seeger.
In the early days, songs were usually sung by groups of people more than later, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the North Europeans who had this extraordinary tradition of singing long ballads with umpteen verses.
Where did we get this idea, though, that music is only for musicians and recording artists, and the rest of us are supposed to listen, not participate?
I'd say it got a big boost when the talking machine was invented by Mr. Edison 100 years ago, on cylinders first, then discs. John Philip Sousa wasn't enthusiastic a bit. He said, "What will happen to the American voice with the invention of the phonograph?" And he was right. The American voice is not what it used to be.
It certainly seems, though, that you're in the forefront of bringing it back to us.
Well, to some people, there's a small sector of the population that still loves to sing, and if they haven't got a family that will sing with them, they search out a coffee house somewhere or a chorus. There's a burgeoning of choruses. I mean, tens of thousands of choruses in this country. People who like a particular kind of music find some others who like this particular kind of music, whether it's madrigals or Italian songs or Chinese songs or gospel songs, whatever it is, and they get together with their friends, and for those that like that kind of music, it's the kind of music they like. And on the other hand, I would like to see people singing even when they're not with friends they know. I'd like to see people singing while they're waiting for the bus. Just us, waiting for the bus, just us, waiting for the bus, just us. Waiting for the bus, Mr. Driver, won't you please come soon? Haven't finished writing the song, but I may. It would be, or singing on the bus. I'd occasionally hear children. A year and a half ago, I was in a New York City street bus, and a little girl was singing, "The wheels of the bus go round." No, wheels of the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. Wheels of the bus go round and round. All over town. That's it. And she had learned it in nursery school, and she and her daddy were making up new verses. The wipers of the bus go back and forth, and the driver of the bus says, "Move on back, move on back." And the mommies on the bus say, "Hush, keep still, hush, keep still, hush, keep still." And then She added a verse, when Daddy's on the bus, he reads. Russell Baker wrote a column I published in Sing Out magazine. This little magazine's been going for 40 years, and I write a column in every issue.
Mm-hmm.
This issue, I gave over most of my column to reprinting a column by Russell Baker called I Hear America Listening, I See America Listening. If Walt Whitman were here, he said he wouldn't write I Hear America Singing. He'd say I see America listening to expert music on miraculous Japanese equipment. It was a beautifully written column, but again, a little sad. He said, of course, people sometimes sing along at a rock concert, but they're so overpowered by machinery they can hardly hear themselves.
You don't need a whole lot of machinery when you perform, do you?
I have my banjo and a guitar, and I do have a microphone if I'm singing to a large crowd. But I like to approximate the feeling of singing around the supper table, around home. I often sing sitting down instead of standing up. My brother-in-law, Ewan McCall, the Scottish singer, used to always sing sitting down. He says, and if I have a bottle of beer near me, that all the better.
But you know, it occurs to me also that with expert singers on Japanese equipment, we've come to figure that the words are the words, and you can't change the words, and the music is the music, you can't change the music.
Well, that's the whole purpose of my book. My book is to show that you can change songs. You don't have to, but if you get an idea for adding a verse, this is what Woody Guthrie did. There's an old gospel hymn. You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk it by yourself. Nobody here can walk it for you. You gotta walk the lonesome valley by yourself. And he added a word. We used to sing it when we were singing for the CIO unions back in the 1930s, the dirty 30s. Oh, though the road be rough and rocky, and the hills be steep and high, we can sing as we go marching, and we'll win that one big union by and by. Woody thought of union in the broad sense of all the hard-working people of the world. Different colors, different skins, and different customs, different languages. But he looked forward to all of us thinking of ourselves as one big family. When he went into the hospital with an incurable disease, the nurse said, Mr. Guthrie, I have to fill out this form. What religion are you? He said, all. Mr. Guthrie, don't kid around. I've got to fill out this form. Are you Protestant, Catholic? Your wife's Jewish? Are you Jewish? All or none, said Woody. All or none. Woody was an astonishing person. I've written about him in other books, but this book I tell in detail how he put together the song, This Land Is Your Land. He was hitchhiking from California to New York and probably thought of verses as he went along. He heard on the jukeboxes the song God Bless America, and his original verse said, God blessed America for me. But over the next 9 years, he wrote it in 1940, over the next 9 years, he tinkered with it and changed the last line to what we know it. God, this land was made for you and me. And changed the verses slightly, added some verses, and in 1949 recorded it for a microscopically small recording company. I mean, if they sold all of 500 or 1,000 records, they thought they were doing good. But his records got into some of the schools, and some of the teachers said, this is the song our kids love. Next thing you know, the song was in the school songbooks. This song has never been on the top 40. Do you realize not even when Bruce Springsteen recorded it, it has not been on the top 40, but it got in the school songbooks, and the kids took it home. They took it to summer camp. They took it to church, Sunday school, and my guess is there's a rare American who has not heard, this land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island. Alan Lomax feels that the vowel a, as in hat or cat, is the most important vowel in American song, whereas in Europe it's more oo and e, thee and lee and lee. And it's not that those aren't good singing sounds, but he said it's a very typical American sound, is ah. It's not in many other languages, you know.
After this short break, Pete Seeger explains why his name is on one of America's most well-known civil rights anthems.
Are you enjoying this conversation so far?
And would you like to get a copy of the book we're talking about?
Just tap the link in our show notes or visit our website, heardeverything.com.
When you make a purchase through our affiliate links, you're also supporting this podcast.
And we thank you for your support.
Now back to my 1993 conversation with Pete Seeger.
Tell the story. How did your name wind up attached to We Shall Overcome?
I was one link in a long chain which brought that tune to its present well-known status. It was an old gospel song. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll be all right someday. If in my heart I do not yield, I'll be all right someday. And at one of the verses, I'll overcome, I'll overcome, I'll overcome someday. No one knows for sure how old that song is. Some people think maybe a spirited prayer meeting, someone improvised a new tune for those words. But I know others are convinced that this is actually a 19th century spiritual, which could have been improvised by somebody illiterate or thought of by somebody while they were picking cotton in the field with the overseer's lash over their head. Whatever it is, in 1946, there was a strike. 300 people, mostly black, mostly women, the American Tobacco Company in Charleston, South Carolina. And it was a long, bitter strike, and to keep their spirits up on the picket line, they probably had a little fire to warm their hands, and standing around the fire, they'd sing hymns. Lucille Simmons, one of the strikers, liked to sing it slow. She had a beautiful alto voice. She changed one word from I to we. And a group of the strikers visited a labor school called Highlander up in Tennessee, and the woman at Highlander, Zilphia Horton by name, heard this song, We Will Overcome. And late in 46 or early 47, she teaches it to me. It came to two young friends of mine, and they played their banjos and sang it. One of them, in 1960, his name was Guy Carawan, got a job at Highlander. And one of the jobs Guy did in 1960 was organize a weekend workshop on singing in the movement. And they sang through different songs, and they came to this song. They, Guy, you got a great song. Sing that again. But you don't have the rhythm right. That chinka, that's not the right rhythm. They gave it the Motown soul beat. We shall overcome. 3 short beats, not 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We shall overcome. No one knows who changed it from will to shall. Guy taught it as shall.
But ultimately, you had to get a copyright on it, though.
Oh, in New York City, I sing it at Town Hall. Guy Carawan sang it at Carnegie Hall. And publishers said to him and me, we both knew the same publisher, said, you know, if you don't copyright this, why, it's going to be mistreated. Somebody may have a Hollywood version. Come on, baby, you and me will overcome tonight. In a society where everything has to be owned, if it's not owned, it gets mistreated. Look what's happened to the air and the water. So Guy and I and his friend Frank signed a contract with a publisher, 3 white men, and we added Zilphia Horton to it, put her name on the copyright. We didn't know Lucille Simmons' name. We didn't at that time. So the copyright was just for four white people for a song which is really a song which was put together mainly by black people.
Well, but really tracing the lineage of any folk song, if I may use that term. I know you don't always like it, but tracing the lineage is always a little challenging, isn't it?
You're exactly right. Nobody knows the history of our music. Our music goes back not hundreds of years, but thousands of years. It goes back to Asia. The guitar was an Asiatic instrument brought to Europe by gypsies 700 years ago. The banjo was an African instrument brought to America 200 or 300 years ago by slaves. And the scales we use, the major scale, the minor scale, the system of harmony we use, these go back thousands of years. And American music, which is loved the world around. You know, I meet people in Japan and in China, in Latin America. Oh, I love American music. Jazz, rock and roll, blues, gospel songs. Well, I tell them, keep in mind that what you call American music is part European, part African. Maybe using the English language or a version of the English language. It's not quite what Queen Elizabeth knew, but it's a descendant of the English language. A lot of new words. I have a song about it. That's the first song in my book, all mixed up. You know this language that we speak is part German, part Latin, and part Greek, with some Celtic and Arabic and Scandinavian all in the heap. Well amended by the people in the street. Choctaw gave us the word okay. Vamoose is a word from Mexico way. And all of this is a hint, I suspect, of what comes next. I think that this whole world, soon, mama, my whole wide world, soon, mama, my whole world, soon gonna get mixed up. I get a whole crowd singing with me. In my 70s, I'm 74 now, I don't have much voice left, but I can get a crowd singing. When they're singing, they're not listening to me anyway. I give them the words, and they sing along. Oh, you should have heard the crowd at Wolf Trap. We had about 10,000 people singing it, as best I'd ever heard a crowd singing. They sang not only in English, they sang in Spanish. I had the words of the beautiful old song De Colores written out on a banner, 40 feet long, letters of 12 inches high. And I told the audience, you're all going to sing this with us. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. There was a murmur of disbelief. I said, we have help from on high. And I pointed up there. The stagehands lowered the words, and they all sang it along with us. It was beautiful.
I did want to ask this, though. You know, you're a man whose ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War. You've been here. You're as quintessential an American as the definition American permits. Why aren't you more bitter at the way you were treated in the 50s and the 60s?
Bitterness is a waste of time. And I've made a lot of mistakes. Anybody who's lived long has made a lot of mistakes. And if I'm bitter at all, it's because I was so stupid as not to recognize some of my mistakes earlier. I was not a good father. I left my wife not just to keep care of the house, but raise 3 children while I was off singing here and singing there and singing somewhere else. And there were long times. We lived in a rather isolated place, way up on the side of a mountain. And the dogs would be barking furiously, and she'd wonder, is there some man outside? I'm here all alone. It took great courage for her. I dedicate the book to her. And in the end, I have a song I made up for her, which kind of sums up my political philosophy these days. Do I have time to sing it to you?
Sure, feel free.
For her birthday a year or 2 ago, her grandchildren and I sang, my grandma, she can make a soup with a little of this and that. She can't feed the whole sloop group with a little of this and that. Stone soup, you know the story. Stone soup, who needs the glory? But with Grandma's cooking, no need to worry. Just a little of this and that. Grandma knows we can build a future with a little of this and that. And a few arguments never hurt you with a little of this and that. True, this world's in a hell of a fix. Some say oil and water don't mix, but they don't know a salad maker's tricks with a little of this and that. And I honestly do believe that if there's a human race here in a couple hundred years, it'll be because billions of people did not sit back and wait for their leaders to do something, but said, I got to do something. Can't do much, but I got to do something. And right in their home community, they do something. They bring people together in some way. And they may make speeches and words, but more often they'll use good food, and a little music, or games, whatever it is. We've cleaned up the Hudson, or started to clean up, using boats of all things, sailboat, beautiful big sailboat called Clearwater. I have a whole chapter on the story of the Clearwater and some of the songs that we sing along the river. Because Clearwater is one of the reasons that we can now swim in the Hudson River. From Yonkers to Catskill, roughly, in another 5 or 10 years, if we keep on pushing, we'll be able to swim all around New York City. It seems like miraculous, but this is the true miracle in the world. There are miracles when people do things together, when people do things for each other. That's the miracle.
When Pete Seeger died in 2014 at the age of 94, President Barack Obama called him America's tuning fork. Now you can get your copy of Pete Seeger's book, Where Have All the Flowers Gone?, by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also find my 2009 conversation with one member of the Peter, Paul, and Mary trio, Peter Yarrow.
She had a unique voice. Mary's voice and Mary's physical presence was the dominant reality, the performing reality of Peter, Paul, and Mary.
And my 1987 conversation with Judy Collins.
The more I thought about all the possibilities of the book titles, I felt that Trust Your Heart made the most sense. It seems to me it's the one thing that's really governed my life, led me to do things that I wanted to do.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you find podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, my 2005 conversation with a very prominent African-American poet who wrote a book about one of the most prominent African-Americans of our time, Rosa Parks. My conversation with the great Nikki Giovanni.
Martin Luther King Jr. needed Rosa Parks way more than Rosa Parks needed Martin, because Rosa Parks, being who she was, became the symbol.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.